Hi, I'm Debbie Homer, a Floriani educator with R&K Distributing, and I'm very excited to bring you another quick and simple, easy project. A project that can be sewn on any sewing machine as long as you have a straight stitch. So you don't have to have an expensive sewing machine to create this fun project. This was a project that someone shared with me that they had seen one of these and thought that they were so cute. So I came up with this idea and decided I would make one of these, and I think they are absolutely adorable. We're always wanting to take our little pad to take notes, whether it's at a church or meetings or a seminar, a sewing class, and I thought this was just absolutely adorable. You put your little yellow pad, slide it in the pocket. You've got your pocket for your pen or pencil. You can put business cards or whatever in here and another little pocket. Now this one has been quilted on the regular sewing machine, where the other one has been done in the hoop, because there's several of you that have these high-end machines that you can use embroidery, and this is actually embroidery all done in the hoop, and all the quilting has been done where this one has been done on the machine. So I'm going to show you both techniques. I'm going to show you the product that is used in this project. We're going to use our no-show mesh. Now this is our no-show mesh cutaway stabilizer that we use, because that's what I use in the hoop, and that's what I'm going to use behind the fabric for the quilting. One of my very favorite products also is the embroidery batting, and I'm sorry I didn't have it in a package because I buy it by the bolt because I use so much of it. This embroidery batting is absolutely the best ever to do in the hoop projects, to do any kind of sewing project that you want batting in it, for like table runners. It was wonderful for this to give it that stability, that little extra oomph in there. This has been needle punched to the highest quality. This stuff is beautiful. I use this in baby quilts. I use it in everything. One of my very, very favorite. And again, it's called embroidery batting. You'll see how beautiful it is. Hardly any shrinkage. It's got a cotton skim in it as well. And the other thing that I love is the Stitch Perfection tape, and we're going to be using some of that as well. So let's put this aside and let's get started. So again, I want you to understand that this can be done on a very simple sewing machine. This has been done on my machine, and I've done this by hand. It's just a straight stitch, so it doesn't really matter what kind of machine you have. But this one, I have taken and quilted my fabric in the hoop. So I'm going to start with that first, and I'm just going to show you how to do that, because those of you that have the machine that can do embroidery, you're more than likely going to know how to do this already. So I have used the largest hoop on my machine, which happens to be the 10 5/8 by 16 inches. And I have taped a piece of fabric in the back, and I've just taped it on 4 corners with our pink Perfection tape. And I've made sure that that's down really well. So I have the right side of my fabric showing. I've put mesh in the hoop, and then I have used our embroidery batting and another piece of fabric and centered it. So I put it in my machine, on my embroidery machine, and I use the features on the machine that I can add all of the quilting to the fabric. So I have to do that 2 different times because there is quilting on the outside, but my fabric on the inside is quilted as well. And I have one done here that I can show you. So here's my 2 pieces that I've done. I have the fabric on this outside. On this one, I didn't put any fabric on the back side because it's the piece that's going to turn, and you'll understand that in just a minute. So I have fabric on the outside of the one, and on the one, I just have the mesh and the batting. All right, so we're going to put that aside for just a second. We're going to get everything set up on the machine, and then we're going to show you how we're going to quilt this. All right, your sizes of fabric, of course, will give you a supply list, so you'll have that. But I'm using 2 pieces that are cut 14 inches wide, 14 inches long by 10 inches wide. Now, I'm using 2 different coordinating fabrics, And so just to kind of give you an idea, they're different. Then I have a piece of my embroidery batting that is also 14 by 10 inches. So what I'm going to do with this first is I'm going to take and I'm going to put my fabric on each side of my batting. And let me tell you, I just did this on a piece of mesh on one of them, on this one. And it turned out good, I like it, but it's not got quite the body that this one does. So I found by putting the fabric on both sides, it gave it more oomph, more body to it, and I like it better, but I'll leave it up to you, whichever way. Maybe you don't have enough fabric. I mean, it really is fine, but this one just has more body, and I like more body. So I've got right side of the fabric, and my embroidery batting is sandwiched in between. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take, let me slide this out of the way. I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to find the 45-degree angle on my ruler. And my 45 is right here. So when I take and I use my 45, I'm going to draw a line using some kind of a marking pen. Now the great thing about doing it the way I'm going to do it, I only have to make one line. Most of your machines come with some kind of a little contraption that's called a quilter's guide. It slides into the back of your shank. If your machine has a walking foot, it will slide into the walking foot. Now the beauty of this is by using this, I can measure from the needle over 1 inch. And that's what I've done all my quilting on this, is just 1 inch. I don't have to take and draw several lines 1 inch apart. Almost every machine, even low-end machines, come with a quilter's guide. If you don't have a quilter's guide, you will need to draw your lines. So I'm using my 45, I'm lining it up with the straight edge of my fabric, and I'm going to make one mark. Now this happens to be a heat friction pen. When an iron touches it, it goes away, and I probably need to get a new one. Hopefully you can see that. I don't want it too dark. After I get this quilting all done, I just take the tip of my iron, and from the heat of the iron, it will just disappear that line. I'm just going to use a regular straight stitch. I do have my walking foot on. And I'm not going to use the quilter's guide to start with. The first time I'm going to follow the line that I've drawn. All right, now that I've done that first line, I'm going to take this guide and I'm going to follow, and I'm going to have Ginger zoom in. Notice how that guide is going to follow right along my stitching. I have spaced that 1 inch from the needle. So I'll do one direction, and then I'll come back, and I don't even have to take my quilter's guide out, but you could if you needed to. But rather than doing this whole thing, I'm just going to show you. So I'm going to flip it around, and again, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take that quilter's guide, and I'm going to follow right along that stitching line. Okay, now if you'll notice on this one, I've done both directions. So after I've done all of the quilting in one direction, I need to go the other way. So I need to take my ruler again. I need to find my 45-degree angle. There it is. And am I going the opposite direction? Nope, I gotta go the other way. All right, so there's my 45 along the straight line here. And now I'm going to draw in the opposite direction. So now I've drawn my line going the other direction, so I'm going to do the same thing. So I would just take and sew across. Again, if you don't have a walking foot, and I flipped mine up here, you just use your regular foot. This is an easy way to do it, people, because you don't have to make all those lines. But if you didn't have a walking foot with a quilter's guide, then you would have to draw your lines. All right, so I have two pieces that are already quilted, so I'm going to go ahead and put this aside. All right, so I said I had my two pieces all quilted. All right, now Ginger took it over to the iron and she just took the tip of the iron, and you can see that my red line is gone. That's what a heat Frixion pin does. I do want to tell you that you want to test it on your fabric because sometimes it could leave a faint, if you're using dark fabric, especially like a black, it may leave a faint white line. I always test it first, all right? Now, we have to do the same thing. We've got two pieces of our, let me give you the right dimensions, 14 by 10 with our embroidery batting in between. That's the outside of our little pocket purse here. This time we need a 14 by 10, and we're just going to use one piece of no-show mesh. So I've just cut a piece of no-show mesh. I've put it behind one piece of fabric. So all in all, you're going to have three pieces of 14 by 10 fabrics, so that you understand that. I did the same thing. I did my wonderful ruler at my 45, and I've drawn a line both directions, and I'm going to quilt it exactly the same way. And people, let me just talk to you about these awesome rulers, because these are our Quilter Select rulers. They have this incredible film on the back. And I don't know how many of you are into quilting and do a lot of cutting, but I'll tell you, a lot of the rulers that are on the market, you literally have to lay your whole arm down to hold this into place so it doesn't slide on you when you're cutting with your rotary cutter. I only have to go with 2 fingers and cut. This thing will not slide. It's the most amazing, amazing ruler on the market. You will love these, and they come in several different sizes. But I've used that 45-degree mark, and I've drawn my 2 lines. And again, I would do my quilting just as I did that one. So when I have them all done, I've got the outside. Now I have the inside. I'm going to put it aside. When I get them done, I'm going to cut them down to 13.5 by 9.5. And I have 2 ready to go. Excuse me. Now, the quilting looks different because I've done it in my hoop on my embroidery machine, but it's exactly the same thing. So here's when this is all quilted. You'll take it over, you'll use your rotary cutter and your ruler, and you're going to cut this down to 13.5 by 9.5. All right, now that I have this all cut down, I need to get rid of my walking foot, and I need to get rid of my quilter's guide. So let me remove that and get my regular foot on, and we'll be right back and put this all together. So I've got my regular foot on now and just the regular straight stitch. So what we want to do now is create this little pocket that our tablet is going to go into. All right. Now this pocket right here happens to be 8 by 13 inches. So let me slide this back in here. And I'm going to leave this open so you can see what I'm talking about, because just the cardboard part of your tablet is going to slide right into that pocket. So my 8 by 13. Now you're going to fold this right sides together. We're just going to sew across the top. Now I just am using the width of my foot to sew. We're going to leave all the remainder of it open. And I do back tack just to make sure that I get that end. And back tack again. I'm going to take and cut my corner at a diagonal. And I'm going to use the turning tool to punch all that out. Now people, if you haven't used one of these are incredible. It's an R&K product and it's called the turning tool. Any Floriani R&K dealer will have it. And it's actually a tool that I came up with and invented a few years ago for R&K, and it's been one of our incredible sellers. I punch out my corner with this little ball on the end. Then I take and I run that little ball right across that seam so it will be really easy. See how nice that popped that out? So I don't have to sit there and try to take a pin and pull it out. So we're going to take this over to the iron and press this, and we'll be right back. I'm going to put this pocket on the piece that is the thinnest. So the thin one is going to be just the fabric with just the mesh. I'm going to kind of put my other one on the over to the side for just a second because he's the one we're going to put on when we're all done. I'm going to lay this right along the edge here, matching raw edges to raw edges. I'm going to put a couple of pins in this to hold it into place. Just for a second. Now I'm going to take another pocket. Now this piece is bigger because he's kind of a funky looking pocket. He's cut 10 inches by 14 inches. This happens to be the slant pocket. Now the easiest way to do this is to cut a big piece and put it on an angle, and I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. This is what we're doing right now, is this slant pocket. You're going to take and fold this with the wrong sides together. And I'm going to finger press it. That would be a good idea to press it with your iron, but since we're filming, we'll just finger press. I'm going to bring it 2 inches down from the corner. Close enough. It doesn't have to be exact. I'm going to line up that edge. I'm going to turn it at a slant. It's going to fit right underneath. I'm going to put a couple of pins in this just to hold it in place so I can cut it. I know this is kind of a funky way to doing it, but I found it worked the easiest. Now that I have this on a slant, I'm going to flip it over and I'm just going to trim off. And all I cut was just that black fabric. Okay, so now we've got our slant. Now it doesn't have to be any particular angle. It's just to give you another pocket. And we need to have enough room to make our pencil holder or our pen holder. All right, now I don't want to pin this on yet because I need to put my little pocket that I can put business cards in or whatever. So we're going to do this pocket next. Now that little guy happens to be 5 inches by 8 inches. And I'm going to remove 2 of these pins because I want to sew him right onto this slant pocket. So I'm going to take him off. I'm going to hold him, and you can see how funky he is on the angle. Here is our 5 by 8 inches. Make sure I give you the right measurements. We're going to put right sides together. We're going to sew up both sides the width of the foot. I'm just going to cut that corner at a diagonal, and I'm going to cut the other corner at a diagonal. And I hate threads, so I'm going to get rid of my threads. Again, I'm going to use my awesome turning tool, and I'm going to turn this inside out. And I'm going to punch in that corner and punch in the other corner, and then I'm going to run that right along that seam again. And on the other side, and it'll make my life so much easier turning it. I'm going to take this over to the iron and press it, and then we'll be right back. So we turned our little pocket inside out and we've pressed it. we pressed under that raw edge about 1/2 inch. Now, you guys, when I press under like that, I'll take and kind of clip my corners off so that they don't show and poke out on the other side when I'm stitching these down, because this is going to go right on top of here. And if you're confused as to where you would like that to go, you can lay this back down here. And I think I'm happy with that. I need to have enough room for my pen, so I might just slide him over just a little bit. This will come on top, and then our pencil holder will go right there as well. So just make sure you allow enough room for that, all right? Okay, I'm happy with that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make sure it's straight and straight. I'm going to put a pin in it on each side, and I'm just going to sew on the edge on all the way around, leaving the top open. So there's our little pocket. So we're going to put this back down. We're going to line up that raw edge on the side and across the bottom. Flip this back over. We're going to put a couple pins in here to hold this into place. I'm going to move that over just a little bit, it looks like. So things don't slide away on me. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to sew down this edge to hold my pocket into place. And again, I'm sewing right on the edge. I do back tack good because that's a stress point. Now I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to measure from this folded edge 1 inch. And then that's where I'm going to stitch to give me the pocket for my pencil or my pen. Now, if you can do a mark with your marking pen, my marking pen will never show up on this black, so I'm using a chalk line. This is just a piece of chalk, because otherwise, if I would have marked it with my marking pen, it would not have shown up on this. I use these little chalk things all the time, and I love them. Okay, so we'll sew that. That'll give us our pencil holder. Again, I'm going to back tack because that is a stress point. All right, now we have all of our pockets into place. So what we're going to do now is take our thickest piece, the one that we did with our batting, and we're going to put right sides together. We're going to pin this all the way around to hold this into place. We're going to sew all the way around, leaving an opening, and then turn it. So I'm just going to pin this. You may decide you want to put fabric on both to give it more body. It's up to you. This one's, I think, going to turn out really nice. I think it'll have great body when I'm all done here. Okay, now I never sew over my pens, and I think things look pretty darn good. Nice and even. Again, I'm going to use the width of the foot, and I'm just going to leave an opening at the very bottom. So I'm going to start about by this pin right here. Have this over here so I can take my pins out. When I come to the corner, I'm going to do 1 stitch at a diagonal, and then I'm going to come up. That diagonal will help it so it turns much easier, and you'll get a much nicer point. Come, do a diagonal. diagonal. Diagonal stitch. All right, so there's where I started, and I want to leave probably 4 to 5 inches. I'm going to cut all my corners on a diagonal. And try not to scoop them on the floor since I'm on camera. Normally I probably would. All right, we're going to use that turning tool again. Going to turn this all inside out. This fabric is so cute. Been in my stash for a long time. Take my turning tool and punch out my corners. If you'll run this across your seam line, people, it will make it much, much easier for you when you take this over to the iron, because just see how that punches that out. It helps so, so much. All right, now I'm going to take this over to the iron. I'm going to give it a good press. I'm going to fold under where my opening is and make sure that it's nice and even. And I'm going to give this a good shot of steam. Then we're going to come back and put a piece of Stitch Perfection tape in this little opening. So let's get it pressed and then we'll be right back. This is where the Stitch Perfection tape comes in so handy. So I'm just going to take and I'm going to tear off a piece. So this is a double stick water soluble tape. You guys, this stuff is awesome. If you struggle, especially if you're a beginner sewer and trying to put a zipper in, holding ribbon in place or kind of lace in place, or even trying to do a binding, this stuff is amazing because I don't have to use any pins. It's just a double stick tape, and I'm just going to stick it inside of there. And if anything shows, I can take a little Q-tip and wet it, and it'll just disappear because it's a water soluble. But it's a double stick tape. Stuff is awesome. So I don't have to put any pins in there to hold it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stitch all the way around this bag. Now I'm going to bump my stitch length up a little bit longer than what I have normally would use. On my machine it's like a 0.118, but that's not going to help you on yours. And I am staying fairly close, so I'm using the inside of my foot along the edge of the fabric, and I'll see if Ginger can zoom in on that. So the inside of my foot is along the edge because I want this to be fairly close to the edge, all right? And I want to make sure that this is nice and even here. I can't stand crooked lines, sorry. All right. Just going to sew all the way around. It's a very quick and simple project. If you had an embroidery machine, you could embroider their initials on the outside. Put a cute flower on the outside. Almost back to where I started. I'm going to just back tack a little bit and fix my stitch. Cut my threads. Okay, we got it. I'm going to give you one more little thing that I did though to make this so that it would fold better. All right. So I took where I had stitched and I stitched over it, but I went all the way up. And the same thing here, where I stitched and I stitched all the way up. And that kind of gave it that little more folding. And then I took it to the iron and pressed it. Going to do the same thing right over that pocket. Cut my threads off here. I'm going to take it over to the iron. I'm going to fold it in half, and I'm just going to give it a good shot of steam right across that seam line. We'll come back and put it all together. So these pads that I'm using are a 5 by 8, just so you know. And this is a pretty standard size. It's 3-pack legal pads, 5 by 8. And this is the canary yellow. All right, so you're just going to take and open this up and slide it inside. I have some business cards here that I can put in. My pencil will fit right down in. Is this not the cutest? These are a very simple project. They're lots of fun. Wouldn't this be fun to make all your friends and give it as a gift, and even maybe embroider their initials on the front? I hope you've enjoyed this, and I hope that all of you will make some. Take and use your sewing machine. You will love being able to do these. Thanks again.